Let us go through. It is going to be not so very detailed class because there are a lot of things in male reproductive physiology, basically few details. But here we will try to finish it up, cover it in about 50 minutes of time, inshallah. So initially, let us go to the basics of reproductive physiology, what the gametogenesis is all about, because that is what we are concerned with, isn't it? If we know the basics, it is easier to understand the details of that particular topic. You, I hope, know about mitosis and meiosis, cell divisions, isn't it? What happens in mitosis and what happens in meiosis? What is the differentiating point? What is the differentiating point? How many chromosomes, pairs of chromosomes are there? Or
in meiosis, there is division. In meiosis, there is division of chromosomes number.
Yes, correct. So there is one cell, okay, and if it becomes two cells, just like the one which is there previously, having the same set of chromosomes or same pairs of chromosomes, okay, that is mitosis, and that is diploid division. Diploid. That means one cell becoming two cells, identical two cells, diploid. Okay, same set of chromosomes, same pair of chromosomes which were there in the original cell are present in the two daughter cells as well.
This is mitosis.
This is mitosis. In meiosis, what is happening? There is one cell, and it is becoming two cells or four cells. Okay, and the division in this is haploid. Haploid, HA from hap. Okay, haploid means half of the genetic material which is there in the original cell, it is being transferred onto the daughter cells. Is that clear? So to remember, diploid, di means two. Okay, so the same one becoming two, diploid. The same pair of chromosomes here also and here also. Whereas haploid is hap. Okay, so if there are 23 pairs, okay, or 22 pairs plus 1, so half will go to the right, half will go to the left. We will be repeating it again and again, okay. So gametes are produced during meiosis 1 and 2. What are gametes? What is this word? Gametes. The sperm in case of the male and the egg or the ovum in case of the female. So gametes are produced during meiosis 1 and 2. So there are steps of meiosis, and I have clarified to you the difference between mitosis and meiosis. Gametes are being produced during meiosis. That means the gametes, the final gamete, the sperm or the egg, will be having half of the genetic material. One sperm will be having, the mature sperm will be having half of the material in case of the male, and in case of the female, one final egg, ovum, will be having half of the genetic material. So naturally you can understand, when fertilization occurs, when these two cells, they combine, then the genetic material becomes whole, complete, isn't it? Because half is coming from the mother, half is coming from the father. So in that perspective, it is easier to understand this particular sentence. Gametes are produced during meiosis 1 and 2. Okay, this is one fact. Meiosis function, like I have told you just now, production of 4 haploid gametes. 4 haploid gametes. Okay, from each diploid oogonium. Oogonium is the original. Okay, going on through stages to become the oocyte and then the final ovum. Or spermatogonium in case of the male, oogonium in case of the female, spermatogonium in case of the male. So 2n, 2n, this is used to designate the number of chromosomes inside that particular cell. Okay? Differences between male and female gamete development. In males, this is the sign for male and this is the sign for female. I hope you know that. So, what are the differences? In case of males, there is continuous development and production of sperm from onset of puberty. Continuous development and production of sperm from onset of puberty until Until what time do we have spermatogenesis going on? Till we die. Okay? Of course, it reduces drastically in old age. It reduces drastically in old age, but doesn't mean we are finished, we are done. No, we are not done yet. So don't count us out. Stem cells are retained. Stem cells are there, and that is the thing. And the stem cells are there, and it is the stem cells which are continuously giving rise to the sperm. Sperm are motile and contain very little cytoplasm. Now let's see the ova. In case of the female, the entire complement of diploid primary oocytes, entire complement. That means all the number of eggs that the female is going to have during her lifetime are present, okay, in her ovary. That means what? It's limited number. All of them are present. Say for example 5,000. I'm giving you an example, an arbitrary number. So this number of ova are there in this particular female. Khalas. Not like the male. In the male, the stem cells are there, continuous generation, continuous production till he dies. So, what do you mean by this? Entire complement, all the premature, okay, or original ova are already present. Diploid means arrested, sleeping, not active. Okay? Diploid primary oocytes are formed during development with 10 to 20 continuing development during each ovarian cycle. So, during embryological development, all the cells, all the oocytes, all the eggs which are going to be there in one particular female, they are going to be there. They will be produced at one time and they will be there. In one ovarian cycle, as you know, there are two cycles going on in a female. Menstrual cycle and ovarian cycle. You know that?
Yeah.
So in one ovarian cycle, 10 to 12 continue their development, and only one goes up to full maturity and is then extruded from the surface of the ovary. So that's one difference.
Have they, all of them, all the female have the same number of ovules?
Almost the same. Almost the same.
From 2 to 4.
Oocytes are surrounded by follicular cells and they form the ovarian follicle. You know this information also. Stem cells are exhausted. Exhausted means finished. Khalas. No more. And oocytes are among the largest cells and are non-motile. So these are the points of differences between male and female gametes. No. Because I want to complete, and it is very simple. It is very simple. Everything that I have told you, there are just points of comparison between male and female gametes. We will see that. We have pictures again because we are not done with it yet, like the sperms. So let's go on. Sperm production. During development of the germ cells, the spermatogonia, they are produced. They remain quiescent. Quiescent means inactive. Quiescent means inactive. So during development, the germ cells, which are called as the spermatogonia. Now we are concerned only with the male, okay? Only today our class is on male reproductive physiology. So development of germ cells, spermatogonia are produced embryologically. Okay? After that, they remain quiet up to the age of around 13 years, 14 years, 13, 14, 15, whatever the age is, or maybe 12 sometimes. But the average age is taken as 13 to 14 years of puberty. So up to that age, they remain quiet, they are not doing anything. Within, and where are they? The spermatogonia? They are present within layers of the seminiferous tubules. Where are the seminiferous tubules? Inside the testis. If you see the histological structure of the testis, you will find the seminiferous tubules there. The seminiferous tubule, okay, we will come to it later. At puberty, some spermatogonia will undergo mitosis continuously. So the first step will be mitosis, to become double. One cell will become double, so that this cell can become more and more. You can imagine the number of sperms that will be produced. So at puberty, some spermatogonia will undergo mitosis continuously, enter into, second will be meiosis. So first mitosis, that one cell will become exact replica of that. Then these second cells, they will undergo meiosis, become half, okay, distribute their chromosomes. This ensures a continuous supply of the sperms, continuous supply of the spermatogonia. The entire period of spermatogenesis, beginning from spermatogonia up to the mature sperm, the entire period from spermatogonia to spermatozoa takes about 74 days or 2.5 months. Right? 75 days means 30, 30 and 15. So 2.5 months.
74 days includes meiosis and mitosis also.
Correct?
Yeah, so
Right from this stage, from spermatogonia.
it's begin from formation during a fetal line.
Excuse me?
It begin during a formation in the fetal line.
Yes, yes. The male characteristics and female characteristics, or male genitalia or female genitalia, whether it is going to be a male child or female child. From the 7th week itself, this differentiation, the germinal epithelium in the embryo during embryogenesis, okay, it gives rise to the genital ridge, and this genital ridge is now differentiated according to the presence of Y chromosome or X chromosome. We will see that. Yani this will become a male baby or a female baby. Okay, and from that point onwards, if it's a female, then the entire embryology will go towards the production of ovary and the premature ova and the set complement of ova inside the female, and similarly there will be formation of the testes and the seminiferous tubules and the spermatogonia in case of the male. Right in the embryo, okay, right in the fetus, let me call it as.
From a puberty, 74 days.
No, not from puberty. This is period of spermatogenesis. Okay, the spermatogonia, they are asleep, they are inactive from birth, okay, or from pre-time of the birth up to puberty. They are quiet, but once they are activated at puberty, then at that time we are talking about spermatogenesis is occurring, and this spermatogenesis, it will begin from spermatogonia, go through the stages and become a mature sperm. Okay, so they are spermatogonia up to puberty, but from puberty onwards, for conversion of spermatogonia into spermatozoa or the mature sperm, that takes a period of 74 days. Remember that.
So
Not,
it's after puberty.
of course, after puberty. Are you confused? Any more confusions about this particular line? This line is about spermatogenesis. And what is spermatogenesis?
In the formation of sperm.
Formation of sperm. And when will formation of sperm occur? Of course, after puberty. Right? The only thing is, the only difference is, spermatogonia have already been formed. And the stem cells are also there. And they are arrested. They are
Sleeping.
quiet and they are sleeping, they are hibernating. Where? In the seminiferous tubules. Okay? But the only difference in male and female is, whereas there is a set number in case of the male, there is no such thing in case of the female, there is a set number, whereas no such thing in case of the male, because the spermatogonia are there, but at the same time there are the stem cells also, which are undergoing mitosis, then meiosis, okay, and then becoming spermatogonia continuously. Shall we go on?
Yeah.
Now, you see here, this is the primordial germ cell. That means in the embryo, primordial germ cell inside the embryo, right? It enters the testes when the testes are formed, okay, gradually in the embryo, and they are now called as spermatogonia. Okay? From birth up to 12 to 14 years, that is up to the age of puberty, then they are quiet, the spermatogonia, not doing anything, just like that. So that is why prepubertal children, they are neither girls nor boys. You can say like that, isn't it? Even though they have the physical genitalia and physical appearance, there are differences are there, but basically children are children, but they are flowers, isn't it, of Jannah. So once it starts, it goes into mitosis. Spermatogonia proliferate by mitotic cell division inside the testes as soon as puberty starts. Okay, it will go mitosis. You see here, the same cell is here, and it is containing. If I talk about colors, you will see that there are two strands. One is blue and one is red. right? So the same two strands you can see here, blue and red, blue and red. So the same, this cell is replicated here. This takes about, this conversion, it takes about 25 days. Okay? Then this one cell, which has been mitotically formed, will become the primary spermatocyte. Primary spermatocyte. The primary spermatocyte is formed after 25 days, then becomes the meiotic division number 1. First meiotic division. So you see the blue strand and the red strand. Now here there are also blue and red, but actually there are 4 here. So 2, if you know the structure of the DNA. Isn't it? There are 2, double helical. Isn't it? So there are 2 strands and 2 strands. 2 blue and 2 red. Now what happens is in meiosis, the 1 red and 1 blue, that will be given to the daughter cell or to the offspring. Okay? Like here. Now this leads to the formation after the first meiotic division is the formation of the secondary spermatocyte. Secondary spermatocyte after the first meiotic division. This process takes about 9 days. After that, the secondary spermatocyte goes or undergoes the second meiotic division. The second meiotic division. In the second meiotic division, you see here 4 cells are formed, and each one is having, out of these
haploid number.
chromosomes or chromosomal content or genetic content of the cell, each one of them is having 1 single strand. That means the haploid. Okay? And this, at this stage, they are called as spermatids. What are they called as? Spermatids. Okay? So the spermatids, they are having haploid set of chromosomes. Finally, there is differentiation. Okay? Differentiation stage, which takes about 21 days, and the mature sperm is formed, as you can see here. The mature sperm. Okay? Because this, how will you differentiate? Because this is having a tail, okay, and it is having a specific shape of the head, etc. This will be repeated again later on. So, process of sperm production involves 3 stages, like we have seen in the previous slide. This is in words, that was in pictures. What are these 3 stages? Number 1, spermatocytogenesis. Spermatocytogenesis, isn't it? The primary spermatocyte and the secondary spermatocyte. Then spermatidogenesis, the formation of the spermatid. Okay, after meiosis 2. Okay, after second meiosis. So spermatidogenesis, and then finally spermiogenesis. That is the formation of the sperm itself. Okay, in spermatocytogenesis produces secondary spermatocytes from spermatogonium. We have seen that in the previous slide. Similarly, spermatidogenesis, the stage where meiosis 1 and 2 occur, results in spermatid formation, having haploid set of chromosomes. Spermiogenesis, final stage of sperm development, spermatid becomes a motile spermatozoa during spermiation. Okay? So 3 stages.
About spermatogenesis, second one. How can meiosis first and second meiosis occur?
It is leading to this formation. So we have to include it somewhere. Meiosis 1 and 2. Are you getting my point? Here only spermatocytes are there. Only spermatocytes. But this is a continuous process. So meiosis 1 and 2 we are including in this process because actually the formation of the spermatids is because of meiosis. So meiosis 1 will occur, then meiosis 2 will occur.
Meiosis 2 will occur in secondary spermatocyte.
Yes. Yes.
And it will repeat in spermatid also, secondary and primary.
This is secondary spermatocyte. Okay? And the secondary spermatocyte undergoes meiotic division 2. So these are steps: meiotic division 1, meiotic division 2, leading to the formation of spermatid.
You mean at this point, like spermatid result of primary and secondary?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? Stage where meiosis 1 and 2 occur. That means it leads to the formation of spermatid. That is why it is called as spermatidogenesis.
I thought the first and second meiosis occur in this system.
No. It leads to this. Finally, spermiation and leading to the formation of the mature sperm. The spermatozoa that are formed are initially unable to move. Not only initially unable to move, the spermatozoa, as long as they remain inside the testis, as long as they remain inside the human body, the male body, they are inactive. They are not motile. Even though they have the tail, even though they have the ability to move, they become motile after ejaculation. Okay? They become motile after ejaculation. So how about moving the sperms from the seminiferous tubules or from the vas deferens? How do they go? Okay, and how do they go out? Ejaculation. It is by peristalsis. The movement, okay, they are the spermatogonia, they are inside the seminiferous tubules. They have to move from the seminiferous tubules into the epididymis. I hope you know the anatomical and histological structure. So from seminiferous tubules they have to move to the epididymis. Then they are stored in the epididymis. Maturation will occur in the epididymis. From epididymis they move into the vas deferens, also called as ductus deferens. So how are they moving? They are moving by peristalsis, the contractile wave. What is peristalsis? A wave of contraction, like in the GIT. The food moves in the GIT by peristalsis. How does food move? Okay, up to the pharynx, we can push it by the tongue. But after the pharynx, how does it go down into the esophagus? Through the esophagus into the stomach. How? By peristalsis. Okay. So what is peristalsis? You know there are smooth muscles in the GIT and all the blood vessels and the viscera. So this smooth muscle can undergo contraction. Okay. And suppose, let's talk about food now. So if this is the intestine or the esophagus, once food enters the esophagus here, okay, how is it going down? Not by gravity. Not by, of course gravity will act there, but not by gravity. Okay, how it will go down? As soon as food enters, the smooth muscle behind the food, it will contract. It will contract. Now once it contracts, and it will not only contract, it will move downward. This wave of contraction or this ring of contraction. So naturally the food will be pushed along with it, right? Similarly, this is peristalsis. Peristalsis occurs in smooth muscles, okay? Circular smooth muscles and longitudinal smooth muscles. So how do they move? If they are non-motile, immobile, they move because of they are pushed. It's by peristalsis. Acrosome. What is acrosome? This particular structure. Okay? Now, what is this? This is the head of the mature sperm. See here, this is the head. This is the head. What is this? From here begins the tail. Here it is called as the neck. Okay? Or this is called as the mid piece or the connecting piece. And the tail, and this is the end piece. There are various structures here which you can read for yourself. But the structure that we are concerned with is the acrosome. What is the acrosome? Can you see this? Do you see this here? It is a layer or a covering membrane on the apical side of the head. Do you get me? On the top of the head. Okay, like a cap. Like a cap on that. That is acrosome. Acrosome contains digestive enzymes like hyaluronidase and other proteolytic enzymes. Naturally, hyaluronidase and other proteolytic enzymes, both of them, they will combine and carry out the process of liquefying and digesting something, which we will see what. It will be in the ovum.
Yeah, also.
Okay, the flagella must become motile. This is the flagella, also called as the tail. Not used, however, until ejaculated, like I have told you. The flagella or the tail, it's useless until after ejaculation, after they come out of the male body. Prior movement through the male reproductive tract is via peristalsis, like I have told you. Hormonal factors that stimulate spermatogenesis. Which hormones play an important role? So I have underlined these. All this material is just an explanation how they are helping in spermatogenesis. So first of all, testosterone. And you may be surprised to know luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, estrogen. I mean, look at these female hormones, and they are there in us. All of them, they are there. But not only there, they are very important. If they are not there, the males will not be males. They won't be doing their function properly. You get my point? Anyway, testosterone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, estrogen, growth hormone, and many other hormones like I have written here, as well as most of the other body hormones, because all of them, they have an indirect role in maintaining metabolism, in doing this, in doing that. If it's not there, the whole process is affected. So let's take up the first one, testosterone. I hope you know the cells, Leydig cells, Sertoli cells, etc. So secreted by Leydig cells. Where is it coming from, testosterone? Leydig cells. Located in the interstitium of the testis, essential for growth and division of the germinal cells inside the testis. Luteinizing hormone secreted by anti-pituitary. Similarly, follicle FSH, anti-pituitary. LH stimulates the Leydig cells to produce testosterone. So if LH is not there from the anterior pituitary in the male, testosterone will not be produced from the Leydig cells. So it's all connected. FSH stimulates Sertoli cells. And what do these? Without this stimulation, conversion of spermatid to sperm, process of spermatogenesis will not occur in the Sertoli cells. You know the structure, isn't it? I have the structure also, the histological structure, how the spermatogonia are arranged layer after layer within the Sertoli cells, and once the process of maturation of spermatogonia into sperms starts, they move from their point of sleeping. Okay, they move towards the lumen of the seminiferous tubules. We will see that. And when they are moving, the Sertoli cells are in between, which help in maturation and conversion of the spermatid to sperms. Okay? Estrogens, estrogen is formed within our body from the testosterone. Okay? From the testosterone by the Sertoli cells, when they are stimulated by follicles FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and are probably essential for spermiogenesis. How? Don't know. Probably. That's why it is written as probably. Because if this is removed again, the sperms that are formed, they are not so good. Let me put it very simply. Growth hormone is necessary for controlling background metabolic functions of the testes. Growth and other metabolic functions. Because in conjunction with other hormones, whether it is insulin or thyroid or all those things. If we have the complete knowledge, then we can understand this particular statement.
What's the relation between estrogen, testosterone, and Sertoli cells?
Relation between estrogen, testosterone, and
Sertoli cells.
Sertoli cells.
Yeah.
The Sertoli cells. Okay. Let me go to this picture then. Where is this? Yeah, here. But it is very not bright, very dim. Okay. So you see, this particular is structure, histological structure of the seminiferous tubules. Over here is the lumen, this lumen. So this is the seminiferous tubule. If you take a section, this section, and enlarge it, you will see. Yeah, the Sertoli, these are the Sertoli cells here. The Sertoli cells are in between. These are the spermatogonia, which are towards the surface. Once the process of maturation starts, these spermatogonia, as they keep on maturing, they keep on moving towards the lumen of the seminiferous tubule. Now these Sertoli cells in between, they are having all those effects which we have seen. They are under the effect of the hormones, and they are producing some of the hormones and helping in conversion of, or can I call it conversion, of moving from stage 1 to stage 2 during the formation of the mature sperm. Particularly, like we have seen in that particular slide, the conversion of spermatids, okay, which is the formation after meiosis 1 and 2, okay. So meiosis 1 and 2 is being done where? Not here, not at this particular end of the seminiferous tubule. It is occurring here in relation with the Sertoli cells. So the Sertoli cells, because of their function of production of certain hormones, which will be affecting the stages of maturation of the spermatozoa, particularly during meiosis 1 and 2, and conversion from spermatid to the formation of the mature sperm. This is the role of the Sertoli cells. Okay? So once the spermatozoa are spermatogonia, they are affected, they are starting or undergoing the process of spermiation, okay, of spermatogenesis, till the time they reach the lumen. You see here, can you see the sperms? You can see the sperms here, the head of the sperms and the tails also. Okay, so from here to here, the whole process of spermatozoa formation or spermatogenesis is finished. And the seminiferous tubules and their Sertoli cells and their function, it is also coming here. Let us go back quickly. Okay, we have done this. This picture is, I have put here simply, it's basically a repetition of the previous one. The previous one which I have showed you, which is showing step by step formation. So, on why this here? Because this is comparative between the male leading to the formation of the sperm and the female which is leading to the formation from oogonium leading to the formation of the egg. Okay, single egg. But at the same time, it gives here in brief the stages of cell division. So at one glance you can see and study and get many things. That is why I have put this picture here. So first of all mitosis, then meiosis. In mitosis there are 46 chromosomes per cell. Okay, 23 pairs, 46 chromosomes per cell. So 46 chromosomes will be going to cell 1 and cell 2, the daughter cells. Not so in meiosis. In meiosis, the 46 chromosomes, they are duplicated. Okay, first of all there is duplication in the first meiotic division. So the two cells, they are having crossover, duplicated chromosomes. And then in meiosis 2, second meiotic division, okay, secondary gamete divides and the 23 chromosomes, and this is haploid. You see here, this is having, so if we trace it back, this is the primary spermatocyte, this is the secondary spermatocyte, and now this is having 2, this is having 2. Finally they will give out haploid conversion. Okay, so leading to the formation of the sperm. What we mean to see here is one primary spermatocyte, one, is giving rise to how many sperms? 4. 4 sperms. One spermatocyte, 4 sperms. One primary spermatocyte yields 4 sperms. One primary oocyte yields 1 egg or 1 ovum. 1, 1. Here 1, 4. Okay, nothing else. So this is fertilization, and the ovum comes and the sperm comes from here. Half of the genetic material from the female, half from the male, and this forms complete genetic material for the zygote. Now, gender determination. Gender, how the child is a male or a female. Okay, that is also pretty simple. Actually, the females, they are having XX set of chromosomes, and it is the male who is having XY set of chromosomes. So it's not the female that gives you a male child. It is the male himself, okay, who determines whether the child is going to be a male or a female. So it is a myth and a wrong concept that it is the wife. Oh, she is giving me continuously. She is giving me daughters only. I want a child. So it's not she who is giving. It's from you. Okay. So it is XY. So the X, they will be XX naturally, isn't it? When there is division, haploid division, so they will have XX, whereas the male will have X and Y. So if the X and X of the female and X sperm of the male. By the way, this sperm of the male is called as female sperm, and this sperm of the male is called as male sperm. Why they are called like that? Because of the zygote, because of the child that will be developed from this particular sperm. Okay, so we call it as a female sperm because it is X, because female eggs are having X. So when female X and male X sperm, they combine, the child will be a girl. Whereas if X from the female is having only X, and Y from the male, okay, then that child, that offspring will be a male child. So this is how gender is determined. Chromosomes determine gender. 23 donated by egg and 23 donated by the sperm, like we have already seen, isn't it? Haploid becomes complete. So syngamy is a term which means the fusion of gametes to form a zygote. The two gametes, they are fusing, the process of fertilization. Syngamy consists of plasmogamy. Gamy means union. Gamy means union. So plasmogamy, union of cell membranes and cytosol. Now the egg is coming and the sperm is coming, isn't it? When the sperm penetrates the egg, initially there is the process of or usage of the enzymes hyaluronidase and the proteolytic enzymes from the acrosome of the sperm. Those enzymes will be released and that will dissolve the surface, not only the surface, all the cells which are there on the surface of the ovum, right up to the zona pellucida, the ovum. Okay. Now once it enters the zona pellucida, the cell membrane of the sperm and the cell membrane of the egg, they fuse. And then the genetic content of the cell of the sperm and genetic content of the ovum, they are also becoming one. Okay? This is how fertilization occurs. So union of cell membranes and the cytosol, that is the cytoplasm. What is karyogamy? Karyogamy is union of the genetic material. So union of the genetic material, the autosomes, there are 44 autosomes or 22 pairs. Okay? And one is sex chromosome. So the remaining are, one pair is sex chromosome, 22 pairs are called as autosomes. Basically there are 23 pairs in everyone. 23 pairs. Okay? 22 autosomes, one sex chromosome. If XX, female, if XY, male. Now in this we will just cover it very short because we already know this, the pituitary gonad axis. You know about how the pituitary is controlling the gonads. Okay, this particular control way or pathway is called as the axis of control, which is there between the pituitary and the gonads. So this is the anterior pituitary, and as you know, anterior pituitary we have seen in the previous slide also is primarily responsible in case of the reproductive physiology, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Both these hormones, they are having importance in female reproductive physiology as well as male reproductive physiology. How in the male, we have seen that already. Okay? So let's go on. What are the basic functions? Again, this is a repetition of what we have been going through, but let's go through that rapidly. What are the basic functions of the male reproductive system? Function 1 and 2, if you want to put it like that. What is the first function? To produce, maintain and transport viable spermatozoa. Produce, maintain and transport viable. Viable means those who can do something. Not viable means dead. Right? Viable spermatozoa. Now, who are doing these things, these particular functions? The testis, the epididymis, the ductus deferens or the vas deferens, and the accessory glands. What are the accessory glands? The prostate, the seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral glands. Okay? Second important function is production of hormones. Hormone production that develops the secondary sexual characteristics. Secondary sexual characteristics in case of the male and in case of the female as well. Hormones which are involved in the feedback mechanism relating to spermatogenesis. So what are the two important functions of the male reproductive system? Number one, produce, maintain and transport viable spermatozoa. Second, production of specific types of hormones. So let's take up the testes. The first one here. The first one here. Okay? The testes, they are the site of the sperm production, and inside the testes, like we have seen so many times, it is the seminiferous tubules. Divided into lobules, the testes are divided into lobules, each with seminiferous tubules. So this is a testis, and these are the lobules. Now if we take out one lobule here, we can see that it is having a structure like this with a central lumen. This is one seminiferous tubule. Now if we take out a section, it appears like this. We have gone through. Seminiferous tubule function to maintain environment for spermatogonia by the basal lamina and the certolicin. This is the basal lamina, okay, and the certolicins. Certolicins separate the lumen from the basal lamina and create a blood testis barrier. blood-testis barrier. Now, in the human body, you know there are various types of barriers. These are not exactly physical barriers, like the blood-brain barrier. Isn't it? Similarly, here there is the blood-testis barrier. That means not everything from the blood can cross over into the testis. Why? Naturally, the testis, they have to be protected at all costs. So, who creates? The seminiferous tubule and the Sertoli cells create three compartments. The lumen, this is the lumen, here is the lumen, the basal compartment and the interstitial fluid space. So, the lumen, it is having low glucose, high potassium and steroid hormones. This will answer your question about what is the role of the Sertoli cells. The basal compartment, the basolateral side of the Sertoli cells, basolateral side. This is the Sertoli cell, this is the baso and this is the lateral side of the Sertoli cells and containing the developing spermatogonia. Basolateral side of the Sertoli cell and the developing spermatogonia. The interstitial fluid space below the basal lamina and contains the Leydig cells. Okay? Contains the Leydig cells. Secondly,
The Leydig cells is outside the seminiferous tubule.
who?
Leydig cells is outside the seminiferous tubule.
No. We are talking of the structure of the seminiferous tubule. Produce hormones and paracrines. Produce hormones and paracrines. From the Sertoli cells, what? Estrogen. Like we have seen previously, the Sertoli cells are responsible for formation of estrogen from testosterone under the influence of FSH, isn't it? And from the Leydig cells, the testosterone itself. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, it's still inside seminiferous or outside.
Which one?
Leydig cell or secrete testosterone outside.
The Leydig cell? The Leydig cell?
Yes, it's outside.
It is outside.
Yes,
outside.
And what about the Sertoli cell?
Inside. Sertoli
Yeah,
cell
Sertoli cell is inside of this one, but the Leydig cell is outside. Outside the seminiferous tubule.
Between the septa.
Between the septa.
and the cave.
Yes. Okay. Continuation of the same. The Sertoli cells produce hormones and paracrines involved with control of the hypothalamo-pituitary gonad axis and the testis directly also. What are these? Some important features. There is something called as the AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone. Very important hormone, anti-Mullerian. Now, you know there is the Mullerian duct during embryogenesis.
Yes.
You know the Mullerian duct. Now, if AMH is not there, or if it is there, what will it do? It is secreted during embryogenesis, AMH, during embryogenesis, and it prevents development of the Mullerian ducts in case of the male. In case of the male fetus, it prevents formation of Mullerian duct. And there is a condition, if AMH is not there in proper quantities, then that child, even though it's a male, but that child will be having a condition, syndrome called as PMDS, persistent Mullerian duct syndrome. Persistent. Yani the Mullerian ducts will be formed in that unfortunate child. And what is that? This syndrome is the presence of Mullerian duct derivatives, means what? Fallopian tubes, uterus, and on the upper part of the vagina in a genetically male person. In a genetically male person. What is PMDS? Because of absence of or improper formation of AMH. What is AMH? Anti-Mullerian hormone. During embryogenesis. This hormone is formed during embryogenesis. If it is improper, then that child, even though genetically the child will be a male, but that child will have, fallopian tubes and some part of vagina also, okay,
yeah, but
and the uterus, etc. Male child. So this hormone is very important during embryogenesis. Secondly, inhibin and activin. What do they do? Inhibit something, activin activates something. What? FSH. Regulate FSH release from the anterior pituitary. Okay? Inhibin decreases FSH release, obviously, because it is inhibin, and activin increases FSH release, also the LH function. Then there is yet another hormone called as the antigen binding protein, ABP. Sorry, not antigen, androgen. Androgen binding protein binds to testosterone and DHT. What is DHT? Dihydrotestosterone. Basically, it is DHT which is responsible for formation of the male genitalia in case of the embryo. Okay? Even though the germinal ridge will be differentiating towards the male if it is a Y chromosome and towards the female if it's a X chromosome, the germinal ridge, but the maturation and formation of the external genitalia, formation of the scrotum and the test and the penis in case of the male, that depends upon DHT, which is another form of testosterone. It's called as dihydro, DI, sorry. Actual is 5, it starts with 5-dihydrotestosterone. So it binds to testosterone, ABP and DHT and reduces the losses of these hormones due to diffusion, resulting in an increase in testicular testosterone level. So prevents loss. This ABP prevents loss of testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. And there are finally the estrogens, estradiol and aromatase. They support spermatogenesis. What is written here is they support spermatogenesis. Finally, the Leydig cells, they produce androgens, isn't it? The testosterone we have seen, testosterone, androstenedione, and dihydroepiandrostenedione. These increase spermatogenesis, influence the development of secondary sexual characteristics in the male, stimulated to produce androgens by LH, Leydig cells, as you know, under the influence of FSH, isn't it? So, FSH increases the response to LH by Leydig cells. So FSH should come first. It will have a pronounced effect on the LH, and LH will then cause formation of testosterone from the Leydig cells. And this is what we have been talking about. The hormones, spermatogenesis, hormonal control flow chart. Hormonal control of spermatogenesis. We need not go into this. Do we need to go? We have been talking about that only, isn't it? The FSH, LH coming from the pituitary, basically when under the control of hypothalamus, isn't it? Gonadotropin releasing hormone. At the time of puberty, it is stimulated. Environmental factors and GnRH. That is how puberty comes about. Okay? Then FSH, LH on the Leydig cells, testosterone, inhibin, etc., etc. All these things, ABP, all these things that we have been talking about. Maturation of sperm in the epididymis. Now once the sperm is formed, the spermatozoa is formed, as we have seen in that picture, towards the lumen in the seminiferous tubule, isn't it? Now these sperms, they are moving, they have to move through the lumen, okay, and they are connected to, through the rete testis, isn't it? Histology. Through the rete testis, R-E-T-E, the rete testis connected to the epididymis. Epididymis first. The epididymis, these seminiferous tubules, they are about half a meter long. The epididymis is about 6 meters long, if you take out and measure. The seminiferous tubules, half a meter long, half a meter seminiferous, and 6 meters. The epididymis is 6 meters long. Okay? The sperms, they require several days to pass through the 6 meter long tubule of the epididymis. And because they are taking several days, they undergo a process of maturation. Okay? They are non-motile, you know that. I have been telling you this. After the sperm have been in the epididymis for 18 to 24 hours, like almost 1 day. Okay? They have developed the capability of motility here. In the epididymis, they have developed the capability of motility. That means the formation of the tail and maturation of the tail, etc., etc. Proper maturation. Even though several inhibitory proteins in the epididymal fluid prevent final motility until after ejaculation. So they want to be motile, but there are things they say, okay, just keep on sleeping. You will have your time. So storage of sperm, 2 testes, isn't it? How many sperms are produced per day? Per day? May 120 million sperms are produced every day in the 2 testes. Some in the epididymis, yani they are stored. We are talking about storage. They are stored in the epididymis. Most of them, they are stored in the vas deferens for about a month. Okay, this is in the normal course of events. Function of the seminal vesicles. What about the seminal vesicles? Where are the seminal vesicles? In relation to the prostate, right? In relation to the prostate. Now we are outside the testis. Okay? Function of the seminal vesicles. They are tortuous, loculated tubes. Tortuous, yani not straight. What do? They secrete a mucoid material containing abundance of fructose, citric acid and other nutrient substances, as well as large quantities of prostaglandins and fibrinogen. All these substances, all these nutritional elements are coming from seminal vesicles. So basically, during the process of ejaculation, what is happening? First of all, there is movement of sperms from the vas deferens. Not only movement of sperms from the vas deferens by peristalsis, the seminal vesicles, they are secreting their fluid. That is number 2. What is number 3? Prostatic fluid. Okay, so in the process of ejaculation, vas deferens give out the sperms, seminal vesicles give out this mucoid containing material, and the prostatic fluid gives out its fluid. Okay, we will see that. So during ejaculation, each seminal vesicle empties its contents. They will empty their content. This adds greatly to the bulk of the ejaculated semen. So you can say almost 60 to 80% of the quantity of the semen that is coming out is basically because of the seminal vesicles. Okay? And the fructose and other substances in the seminal fluid are considerable nutritional value for the sperm. The sperms, once they are out, they have to survive. They have to have food, etc. So arrangement is made for them to have fructose, etc. Okay, don't be worried. Okay? Prostaglandins, which are there in the seminal fluid, are believed to aid fertilization in 2 ways. Prostaglandins. How? One, by reacting with the female cervical mucus to make it more receptive to the sperm movement. React with female cervical mucus, prostaglandins, make it more receptive for sperm movement inside. That is one. And number 2, by possibly causing backward reverse peristaltic contractions in the uterus. Okay? So the uterus, reverse peristaltic contractions, yani towards the body of the uterus. So when the sperms are coming towards the cervix, the cervical mucus is acted upon by the prostaglandins, makes it better to receive the sperms. And what is the uterus made up of? Muscle, isn't it? Smooth muscle. So this muscle is reverse peristaltic. Reverse means opposite towards the outside. Towards the cervix means will be the true peristalsis, from the cervix out into the vagina. But reverse will be from the cervix, cervical opening, external os towards the body of the uterus. So prostaglandins do this. They cause backward reverse peristaltic contractions in the uterus and the fallopian tubes, which will naturally help in movement of the sperm. Enter it inside the body, go through the fallopian tube towards the fimbrial end. Now, function of the prostate gland. The prostate gland secretes a thin, milky fluid. So the semen is white in appearance. Why? Because of the prostatic fluid. It is white. If there is no prostatic fluid, it will be not white or less white if there is less prostatic fluid. So the milky white appearance of semen is because of the thin milky fluid that is coming from the prostate. And this fluid, prostatic fluid, is rich in calcium, citrate, phosphate ions, clotting enzyme and fibrinolysin. Now why in God's name do we have to have clotting enzyme, clot, like the blood clots? Why do we need it here? We need it here because inside the female, once ejaculation is occurring, okay, she will move, isn't it? She may go up to the side, or she will stand up, go to the bathroom or something. So this semen, it should not come out if fertilization has to occur. So to hold the semen inside, the cervix is there. Have you seen? You must have seen the female structure, right? So there are fornices. What is the fornix? The anterior fornix,
Vagina.
posterior fornix. So these are deep vaginal structures, the fornices. So these clotting factors, they cause the semen to clot. Okay, to clot, and if it is clotted, then it will remain sticking inside. Okay, it holds it there for some time, for some few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't know exactly how much, but for some few minutes, the clotting factors help in clotting the semen so that it will be held inside around the cervix. And then it should not be clotted forever because we want the sperms to move. So the fibrinolizin, the profibrinolizin which is there, it will cause, just like in the blood clot, it will cause lysis of the clot by causing lysis of the fibrin threads. Okay? And then again liquefaction will occur and the sperms will move and fertilization can occur. Understood that?
Yes, yes.
Prostatic fluid is alkaline. This is a very important point. For sperms to remain motile, for sperms to remain alive, alkaline medium has to be there. If the medium, if the environment becomes acidic, the sperms rapidly lose their ability to move, their motility. Okay? And if it becomes highly acidic, they die. Okay? So we don't need acidic environment, we don't need high temperature also for the sperms. That is why the testes are outside the body. That is why the testes are outside the body. If the testes do not descend, there will be no spermatogenesis in undescended testes because of the body heat. Okay? So we don't want high temperature, we don't want high acidity for the sperms to work. So prostatic fluid is alkaline, whereas the vaginal secretions, they are acidic. They are acidic. So this prostatic fluid helps in neutralizing the acidity of the vaginal fluid. Okay? And gives the proper environment, alkaline environment for the semen and the sperms to do their work. The vaginal secretions of the female are acidic. pH is 3.5 to 4. Ooh, very acidic. You see that? Sperms do not become optimally motile until the pH of the surrounding fluid rises to 6 to 6.5. 7.5 better. The slightly alkaline prostatic fluid helps to neutralize the acidity of the other seminal fluids and enhances the motility and fertility of the sperm. So, prostatic fluid important for alkalinity. Prostatic fluid important for calcium, citrate and phosphate. Seminal fluid important for fructose. Prostatic fluid also important for the clotting factor. Okay? So those were functions of the not coming.
No, he's coming for another lecture.
Okay, let him come for another lecture another time. Okay, capacitation of the spermatozoa. Capacitation means give it the capacity, make it capable of, making it possible for them to penetrate the ovum. So once they are outside, okay, still they have to be made capable. Normally requires 1 to 10 hours. Normally requires, this capacitation process requires 1 to 10 hours, and 1, 2, 3, 4 points are there for making them more capable of fertilization. Number 1, the uterine and fallopian tube fluids. They wash away the various inhibitory factors that suppress sperm activity. As you see, there are various inhibitory factors. So uterine fluids and fallopian tube fluids are there which will wash away the inhibitory factors. Point number 1. Point number 2, membrane at the head of the sperm, that is acrosome, right, becomes weaker due to loss of cholesterol covering. So when they are inside, they are having a lot of cholesterol around, and this cholesterol covers the acrosome, makes it stronger. So that cholesterol is removed when it is outside. Number 3, membrane of the sperm also becomes much more permeable to calcium ions. The membrane of the head of the sperm becomes much more permeable to calcium ions. That means a lot of calcium ions will move in. Okay? And this makes movement of the flagella stronger. Earlier, in the initially beginning, the flagellar movement is very weak. But once calcium enters the head, okay, the flagellar movement becomes very strong. Whiplash-like movement becomes. And then finally, the calcium ions also cause changes in the cellular membrane that covers the leading edge of the acrosome. Okay? The acrosome. making it possible for the acrosome to release its enzymes rapidly and easily. So it is again the role of the calcium ions to enable